because I'm on vacation. I don't really have access to great internet and my studio and all this stuff, so we're just going to go live. This is probably going to be pretty quick because everyone's in bed and I don't want to be too loud. So, anyways, the Utah Jazz lose to the New Orleans Pelicans. This again on a last second shot. Uh, and things are bad with the Jazz right now. I don't have, well, maybe I can pull up my computer here. But it's bad in Jazzland right now. It's not good. Let's pull this up. Maybe we can pull up the stats at least while we talk. I'm like holding this up while I talk. So the Jazz lose by 1 point on a last second big time shot from Devontae Graham. And honestly, let's just look at the last 3 games for the Jazz. So you have 2 games ago, you lose to the Memphis Grizzlies on a last second shot. Last game, the Jazz barely pull out a win against the tanking Oklahoma City Thunder. And tonight, lose on a last second shot to the 4-16 New Orleans Pelicans, who are playing without their best player, Zion Williamson. Yes, Brandon Ingram played, and he always seems to do well against the Jazz, at least for the most part. But you know what? His numbers tonight were insane. Brandon Ingram tonight was, 8 for 22, 1 for 4 from 3, had 5 assists, 8 rebounds, 21 points. And no one else on the Pelicans really. I mean, Devontae Graham had the huge shot, but let's see, he only had 9 points, which all came from 3. He was 3 for 7. Probably one of the interesting stats of this game is Hassan Whiteside had 1 point and Rudy Gobert had 9. So between the two of them, they had 10 points. So the Pelicans successfully took the Jazz bigs out of this one. And so that was a problem for Utah, and you got to give credit to the Pelicans for doing that. But you know what? It's another tough shooting night for Donovan Mitchell. He's having one of the roughest shooting stretches he's had in a while, and the Jazz just need him to get out of it. Let's see. Sorry. Let's see. Donovan Mitchell shoots 6 for 21 tonight from the field, 28%, and 2 for 7 from 3, 28%. That is rough. He did have 6 assists, so you'll take that, but whew, that's tough stuff. And when Donovan Mitchell's shooting like that, it's hard to overcome. 16 points on 21 shots. That is rough. And that means only 2 free throws. So it's really hard to win when he's shooting like that. The other interesting stat is there were 27 assists for the Pelicans as a team compared to the Utah Jazz 17, which is a symptom of a team that's just not really moving the ball. Although sometimes, when the ball's moving and people aren't making shots, that's hard to do. Big shout out to Bojan Bogdanovic. I know all the Bojan Bogdanovic stands on here who lose their mind every time. He had a really good night. Bojan Bogdanovic, 9 for 14 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, 23 points. Bojan Bogdanovic. Great night for Bojan. All of the Bojan fans, be happy. Be happy. For the Jordan Clarkson stands, who get so mad at me if I don't mention Jordan Clarkson, 3 for 12 from the field. So I guess if we're going to give Donovan Mitchell a hard time, Jordan Clarkson was 25% from the field. Donovan Mitchell was 28% from the field. So Donovan Mitchell, percentage-wise, had a better night than Jordan Clarkson. So I don't know if they'll be commenting on the video tonight. They tend not to on those nights. How do I hold this camera? Like this? Like this? Like this? Like this? Like this? Like this? Is this working? That's the stuff you're getting by subscribing to this channel. That's what you get on these Thanksgiving live streams when I'm out of town. That's what you get. And I think I kind of see the comments, but not really, it's not the same. I'm not in my studio, guys. Oh, I will say, the Jazz suck right now, but My studio doesn't, because guess who bought a new 34-inch wide screen monitor to to uh, do more Jazz video, NBA video stuff. So I'm happy. Donald Schooley, rough game to watch live. Yeah, it was. It was really bad. The Jazz are not very good right now. In fact, I would argue the Jazz are bad. The Jazz are bad right now. They're bad. Uh, Mike Conley tonight was 0 for 4 from 3, so that was also tough to overcome. Only 12 points. Armani Tafa, we are so bad. Yeah, they're bad. The Jazz are struggling to beat the Thunder, who are actively trying to lose. That means you're bad. Let's see. Mike Conley, 4 for 10 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3, 12 points. Conley was a minus 11. Jordan Clarkson, minus 9. Oof, rough stuff tonight, guys. The Jazz got really bad guard play tonight and could not find a way to get their bigs the ball. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. The Jazz will get better. Donovan Mitchell's going to get out of his slump. So, the Jazz will get better when that happens. If like Conley makes one of his threes or Donovan makes one more three, let's see. Rudy Gay, the only positive at the moment. Rudy Gay had a nice night tonight. Let's see. Rudy Gay, 4 for 5 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. He had 9 points, but Rudy Gay only played 16 minutes. So I don't know if the Jazz were prepping because they lost this game. Guess what? They're going to play the same team tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes. My guess is the Jazz win tomorrow because you can't really shoot worse than they did. But I don't know. Daniel, I feel personally attacked by this team at the moment. This is rough to watch. I think they feel overconfident they can turn it on and off when they want. I agree. And you know what? That's one thing that's, I think, a tough pill to swallow for at least me and Jazz fans is like the Jazz haven't proven anything. What have the Jazz proven? They've won like in the last 4 or 5 years like 2 playoff series. Go out and play harder. I was looking at the advanced stats on NBA.com, and like the Jazz are last in like multiple hustle stats. The one that's annoying to me is the deflections one. So the Jazz are the last in the league in deflections, which means getting your hands on balls and creating fast breaks. Coach will watch Coach will watch Clarkson miss 6 shots in a row, but he tries something else. We are moving like the Lakers are money. Yeah, because the Jazz are old. Because it kind of goes back to what I'm talking about with the hustle stats. Like the Jazz just don't have athletes outside of like Mitchell and I guess Clarkson kind of. Like who's athletic on the Jazz? Royce is pretty athletic. Like Royce, kind of fits in that mold, but he's not like outside of those like 3 guys, everyone else on the Jazz is like old. At least the ones Quinn Snyder puts on the floor, like Joe Ingles isn't getting deflections. Bojan Bogdanovic isn't getting deflections. I mean, Rudy Gobert does kind of, but he's guarding in the paint, so by the time it gets there, it doesn't matter. So it's tough to swallow. The Jazz also, so this was an interesting one. The Jazz like have a high percentage of getting loose balls, but they have the least amount of loose balls to recover in the league, and I think that's because they don't deflect any balls. There's just not very many loose balls for the Jazz, so the Jazz just put everything in the half court and then have everything go at Rudy. And I don't know. I think the Jazz have some issues. This feels like psychology night. We're just like talking through our pain tonight. Let me know what your pain is, guys. Armani Tafa, how do we turn it around, do you think? All right, so good question. That's kind of where I want to go. The Jazz should have made a trade last year. Now the Jazz have to make a trade. Jordan Besserell, the GOAT, 199. Thanks, Jordan. Jazz are mediocre, not as good as they think. I agree. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to read them all. Sometimes when they're long, I don't. It just disappeared. Sorry, Jazz Tazafresh. I can't remember how your name is said. Sorry. Sorry. How do we fix the Jazz? I don't know. It's bad. The Jazz had a disastrous offseason last offseason, guys, and it's the reason why Dennis Lindsey was fired. It was disastrous. Bad pick for one. By the way, insult to injury, if you didn't see, but like it looks like Doak might have broke his leg tonight, so or had some sort of serious injury. It looks like it was bad, whatever it was. Um, so wasted pick when you could have gotten someone like Desmond Bain or McDaniels, who's um, on on the Timberwolves. And McDaniels is kind of coming back to earth a little bit this year. His rebounding is not good enough, but the shooting's there and his length is there. A young, long, athletic wing. You'd think the Jazz couldn't have used that this year now. That's the problem when you don't keep building. Like, that's the reason why you constantly have to build through the draft, guys. If you're not building through the draft every year, you are not replenishing the youth on your team. And if you're constantly trading away picks, which sometimes you've got to do to go get someone like Mike Conley, or go get a player, but then all of a sudden 2 years go by where you underperform in the playoffs. The Jazz look pretty old right now. You know, they look pretty old. And Joe Ingles looks out of shape to me. And he had a good shooting night tonight. Give him credit. Bojan Bogdanovic had a good shooting night tonight. It's great. Guess what? It didn't matter. And part of that is because Donovan Mitchell's slump is just bad right now. But the Jazz aren't winning in any other way. Like, what other... They're not winning... Like, they don't have any other way of winning, apparently. Apparently, they just have to have great offensive nights, or they're not going to... Okay. My stupid phone went over to Twitter. So, if they... Jazz will never win with Donovan. That's not true, Daniel Sanek, because they already have. Problem is, the Jazz aren't doing anything to maximize the talent. So, we can get into the philosophy of this. I think the Jazz have really screwed up the last 2 years because the moves they made were to enhance Quinn Snyder's system rather than to enhance the talent and ability of their best player, right? So, you keep Bojan Bogdanovic, which is fine. He's a great shooter. Tonight he shot the ball. Jordan Besserell, another good game by Bogey, wasted. That's the question, though, Jordan. Like, what's a good night from Bogey? He had a great night shooting. It didn't matter. The same thing happened with OKC. Bogey had or was it? It was against Memphis. Like, go look at the stats. I can't remember if it was Memphis or OKC. Like, they barely beat OKC and they lose on a last second shot to Memphis. Both these games that they've lost, Bogey had a great night. And part of that was Donovan Mitchell didn't shoot. But here's the problem is the Jazz don't win in other ways, you know? Sometimes teams win because they get a lot of transition buckets. They get like we said, the Jazz they don't get deflections. So the Jazz aren't creating any sort of transition opportunities. The Jazz aren't getting a huge amount of steals. And Donovan honestly, I think is leading the team in steals. I'd have to look at it, but I'm pretty sure because Donovan's having actually a career year in steals. I actually don't really want, Donovan is a lot of things, but he is he's trying on the defensive end. And Donovan had 6 assists tonight, so the ball was moving a little bit. But you had Donovan with 6, Mike Conley with 5, and then the rest of the team had, what is it? So 17 as a team. We're doing math live here. 6 plus 5. So outside of Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, you had, what is that? Guys, what's 17 minus 11? 6. 6 assists. No one was moving the ball. And maybe part of that is a Donovan Mitchell. He's just shooting the ball, and that ball's not moving around. Maybe. But I personally think that, yeah, well, and you're right, Nick. There's no 6 of 21 isn't good enough to win any type of game in the NBA. 100%. There's no defending that. If Donovan Mitchell shoots 7 for 21, the Jazz win the game. But I actually think this game and these last 3 games is a symptom of other issues. I think the Jazz have relied way too much on just all offense basketball on one end, and then on the other end, because they've just put so much focus on just 3-point shooting, and just offense and then just hope that Rudy Gobert is enough on the other end. In former seasons, it was enough. You know, it was like you could have, Ingles and Bogey and Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell on the floor because Rudy was awesome. But then in the playoffs, it just didn't work because you just can't guard on the perimeter, you know? And it's not like Jazz fans are surprised by this. We've talked about this every game. Like the reason the Jazz lose the Clippers series, with them having lost Kawhi, is because the Jazz can't guard anyone on the perimeter. You know, and Rudy spends half his time switching between perimeter and the rim because that's what he's like the scheme's designed to do. But when all five players against on the team you're playing against can shoot the ball and get him out of the paint, but no one can stay in front of their man, and like people will say, well, Mike Conley was injured. Well, guess what? The Jazz had Mike Conley against Denver and had a 3-1 lead against Denver. And Mike Conley was healthy, right? And Donovan Mitchell had an insane offensive series against Denver 2 years ago. I mean, honestly, Donovan had like a perfect offensive series, and the Jazz couldn't get a stop. So like, to me, it's not really an offensive issue. Yes, like they need to pass the ball more. Yes, Donovan Mitchell needs to shoot better, but Donovan Mitchell will shoot the ball better eventually. Like for example, like how many people on here are like hating on Damian Lillard this year? If you're like, I don't know if you guys have been following, but Damian Lillard had a worse, one of the worst slumps like in NBA history to start this season. It's been bad. I haven't checked it out lately, but it's gotten better. Portland's winning, but he was like shooting way worse than Donovan Mitchell was. But guess what? He's their guy. You know what Donovan Mitchell is for the Jazz? He's their guy. And I kind of want to write something about this, and I'm not quite sure how to write it because I want to give like the Jazz credit because there are some things that I do really like that the Jazz have done. I do think Quinn is a good coach. I disagree with him on like certain things, but overall I think he's a good coach. But at some point you've got to like believe in your guy. Like, do you believe in Donovan Mitchell or not? Like, and someone was mentioning this, like, we need more of the blender. I'm tired of the blender. Get rid of the blender. You know what the blender does? It gets the ball out of Donovan Mitchell's hands. We've talked about this before. Like, when John Stockton and Jeff Hornacek were on the floor, you wanted those two guys, John Stockton 1, Jeff Hornacek 2, doing your possessions, right? Like, that's what you wanted. Do you want to move the ball around so Adam Keefe gets some post opportunities and stuff? You want more Brian Russell driving to the hoop and kicking out to Adam Keefe? Is that what you want? Or do you want the ball in your stud's hands and then getting players around him and them that enhance what they do? Donald Schooley, we should trade for Barnes or Nance. We should have done it last year. I don't know if we can now. That's the scary thing, Donald. Like, that's what I mentioned on Twitter. I said, last year we should have made a trade. This year we have to, but when you have to make a trade, that's when things get dicey, Anyways, what I personally would like to see, and I know, and this is just an issue the Jazz have, is, you're trying to keep Mike Conley healthy. But I want the ball in Donovan Mitchell's hands and Mike Conley's hands. That's enough. Like, people will like say online, like, oh well, if you get someone like Nance or like here's the difference with Utah and Portland is like Portland has Dame and CJ, Utah has Conley and Mitchell. But instead of like getting guys like Robert Covington, like Portland gets to try to just have good defenders surrounding their two guys, Utah has like offensive players that get the ball out of Conley and Mitchell's hands half the time. And so on nights like tonight, it's great when Bojan has a great night. But I didn't see Daniel Stanek making comments, saying a lot after last game when Bogey went 2 for 9. I would much rather have a system that just like enhances the strengths of your best players, gets the ball in their hands more often, and, because guess what happens? And it happened like tonight. You have this shared system that you play throughout the regular season and, through the first, it's like in football between the 20-yard lines. But when you're in the red zone in football, or when you're in the last 5 minutes of a game like this, guess what's going on? You're putting the ball in Donovan Mitchell's hands, and he's got to figure things out. And so, if the whole game Donovan Mitchell is trying to figure out how to spread the ball and get the ball to multiple people, and then at the end it's just like save us, Donovan, and he doesn't ever do everything perfectly, well, that's tough. But what if you have better players on surrounding him, like Covington or Nance or someone like that that can defend and rebound, so that maybe you're not in this situation so much. Now it's kind of a moot point. This season is starting to get a little scary because, and maybe, who knows, maybe the Jazz get into the playoffs and they do just play Mike Conley 36 to 40 minutes a night, and this is all, you know, oh, we don't need to worry about it. But what I worry about is like, are the Jazz going to really struggle this year because you are trying to keep Mike Conley healthy? Mike Conley's not playing tomorrow, by the way. They're going to rest him because of the back to back. Good luck. So, I don't know what you do. The ideal is that you have you have Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell that need, thanks Bob Ross, you're the man. Uh you have Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, who in my opinion should be like handling the ball all the time. But the Jazz are trying to rest Mike Conley. You bring in Jordan Clarkson, who takes a lot of possessions. You have lots of possessions with Bojan Bogdanovic, who goes in the post, and Bojan had a really nice night tonight, but and then you have other possessions with Joe Ingles, who runs the offense, and so you just have a lot of different things. Daniel Stanek, what has Bojan achieved in his career, Daniel? All right, well, okay. I'm sorry, you get really mad, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, the point of this is that I think the ball needs to be in Donovan Mitchell's hands and Mike Conley's hands more often, and you need to design things that make things easier on them. Like, can we, people will make fun of like the Harden offense and the fouls and all the things that go on with that. But guess what? The Houston Rockets set up a system where James Harden like made simple actions and simple plays. And it was like drive to the hoop, pass to a corner three, take the the floater or the layup or lob to the big. And you know, the Jazz offense is all these complicated things going on, but at the end it's just kind of isolation. Donovan Mitchell, get us a bucket. And I don't know. I don't know, guys. I really don't know what to do, but I think the Jazz just need to shake things up a bit. I think that, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I mean, honestly, how many, and if you love Bojan Bogdanovic, that's great. I like Bojan Bogdanovic. I'm not like anti Bojan Bogdanovic, but here's my issue. How many guys need the ball in their hands, guys? Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic. They even have Royce O'Neal running certain plays, like he'll drive to the hoop and kick out, which I actually think is fine. I actually don't think Royce O'Neal possessions take away from anyone because he doesn't take a lot. Royce O'Neal is also my favorite player right now. But then who else is taking possessions? You've got Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles. Even Rudy Gay is taking possessions with, isolation. And so I kind of feel like there's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen for the Jazz. And I just, I don't know. I don't know, guys, how you fix it, but I really feel like the Jazz needed to get some more athleticism on the floor. Just athletes, rebounding. You can't teach athleticism. You just can't. And it is something, Quinn always defaults to shooting, and you can always see why. But you know what? There's just not a lot you can. When you have athleticism on the floor, plays happen, and I don't know. I just think the Jazz. I hope the Jazz haven't maxed out. I hope so. I really hope so. Fingers crossed. I really hope the Jazz. Stanek Barnes is really good. Actually, by the way, Harrison Barnes has won a finals. Yeah, what does it come? Well, finals championship. How's that for you? Harrison Barnes is really freaking good, guys. He honestly, if the Jazz traded for Harrison Barnes, that would be really, really good. But the Jazz have some. There might be cracks in this foundation for what they're doing. So I don't know. I don't know. But things are bad right now. Hopefully the Jazz can figure it out. Hopefully they can like get back to moving the ball because that's what helps them win games. But you've got your best player in Donovan Mitchell struggling, and when Donovan Mitchell struggles, they don't win. And so they need Donovan Mitchell to just kind of get out of his shooting slump. It sucks. Ingles is a liability, and Clarkson is almost there too. Clarkson is playing better recently. Ingles just looks so slow to me. He honestly so slow. And he'll get I don't know. Uh, the Jazz. Here's the thing, Taza. I like Jordan Clarkson. I don't think the Jazz should trade Jordan Clarkson, honestly. Like, let's see. You know what? Happy Thanksgiving, Daniel. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving too. I don't think Jordan Clarkson's the issue. I actually think Clarkson's one of those players you like to have because, you'd like to get that offensive boost off the bench. I just think the Jazz, they just need athleticism on the wing to support Donovan Mitchell. So on nights like tonight, when Mitchell and Conley both struggle from three, that you can win a game with defense and getting easy buckets in transition. Like, how nice would it be for Donovan Mitchell to get a few outlet passes, from a Robert Covington or a Larry Nance? By the way, last year, Larry Nance led the league in deflections. The Jazz are last in the league in deflections. You don't think that guy would help out? You don't think that wouldn't help out the Jazz a little bit? Just a little bit? And here's the thing, too. There's like, what's the saying? Like, if you don't love Donovan Mitchell now when he's struggling, don't come on here and sing praises to him when he's winning the Jazz playoff games because he's killing it. I believe in Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell can be that guy, and we've seen him be that guy. So I don't know, guys. This was more of just kind of a like, I don't know. We'll do this again tomorrow because I'm here again tomorrow, and this is kind of fun when we do these on the phone. I don't know why. But we will. I don't have my list, so shout out to the All-Stars. You guys are amazing. I really feel bad I can't list off the All-Stars, and I don't have it memorized, so I'm sorry. But anyways, guys, and honestly, guys, let's give Bojan credit. Like, the Jazz wouldn't have even been close in this one if Bojan didn't shoot like he did, honestly. So Bojan deserves a lot of credit. Here's the thing, before I go off, and I mean not go off, just sign off. Like, I'm not anti Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan Bogdanovic is a nice player. He's a really good offensive player. I think the Jazz ask of him too much because he has a high turnover rate. I think Bojan Bogdanovic is like as a spot up 3-point shooter, pull up 3-point shooter, driving to the rim, maybe as a cutter. I feel like the Jazz actually don't use him like they should in some ways because the Jazz just don't have a lot of cutting in this offense, which I think would be great, but they don't have the athleticism for it. So because Quinn and the front office have always leaned purely towards shooting, some of the downsides to that is, one, like athleticism on the defensive end, and two, cutting, like players moving to the basket, And what I would love to see is like just change it up. The Jazz are losing anyway, so why not have Rudy Gobert take a free throw line jumper here and there? And then when they start guarding him, have like Royce O'Neal cutting to the rim and Rudy passes it to him, or Donovan Mitchell cutting to the rim for an alley-oop. Like, when's the last time we've seen Donovan Mitchell get an alley-oop? You know what I mean? Get some easy buckets at the rim. Like, try some new things. It just feels like the Jazz are just being told to like do the same things over and over again and just be more effective at it, be more efficient. And it's like, well, can we try something else a little bit? The Warriors lead the league in assists right now, in assist percentage. They get like 77% of their shots are like on assists. It's out of this world. And you would think that the whole thing is just like Steph Curry getting buckets, but the ball moves like crazy. They have guys cutting to the rim. And guess what? Draymond Green can't shoot. But they put the ball in his hands. And I get it. Draymond Green is a good ball handler and can actually kind of initiate a play, but Rudy Gobert can pass the ball. I would like to see a little more of like different things in the offense where you've got cutters. Get easy buckets. More easy buckets. If everything is just depend on the three, it's gonna be rough, you know? And it's gonna be just the Jazz can't guard anyone in the playoffs again, and that's what we saw last year and the year before, and likely what we'll see again this year. Hopefully the Jazz can get somebody, but guess what? You know what the hardest thing? And I was listening to Harlabob, who, by the way, he's an interesting listen. That's a whole other thing. But one thing he mentioned, and it's true, the hardest thing to get in this league is athletic wing defenders. That is like, that is, if you can get that, it changes everything. And the Jazz don't have that. They just don't. So the Jazz go full on shooting. And then in the playoffs, they struggle to defend. And so that's part of it. And that's what happens is you get studs when uh, they can, develop offensively. Then you've got yourself something really nice. So we'll see. I think Zanuck needs to make some moves this trade deadline, and we'll see what happens. But tomorrow night, the Jazz play again. Mike Conley's probably going to rest. We'll see if they can win. Shout out to the All-Stars. You guys are the ones that make it. Mwah. Mwah. To the All-Stars. There you go. That makes up for me not being able to read your name, all right? Mwah. This got weird. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the channel. I'm gonna make some more stuff with just kind of to be more fun, lighthearted. We're not gonna call them breakdowns because I don't want to copy John Boy. I'm gonna do my own style and flair and figure out my own lane. But we're gonna call them film breakdowns or like film studies, because it's fun. Anyways, guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back home in a couple days. We'll be back in the studio doing our thing. Got a new monitor. Happy Thanksgiving, Taza Fresh. Daniel Stanek, you're the man. Thank you for watching, Daniel. You're awesome. Shout out to everyone watching right now. I'm going to bed. I will talk to you next time.